Good evening, everybody, and welcome to my first ever Deadzone tournament report from Incident on Canaan Delta-12, which took place yesterday at the Northwest Gaming Centre / Element Games. And it was run by the Altrincham Gaming Club. Now, I haven't done a Deadzone tournament report before. I have been to a tournament, but it's probably slightly more difficult to report on than Kings of War because the game's kind of more dynamic and back and forth. So it's more difficult to actually capture all the action with pictures because you're jumping from one person to the other a lot. So we'll see how this goes, but I think I do have a pretty decent memory. There were 5 games though, so hopefully I won't forget anything. I've got the various tournament documents to hand as well. If anyone has any questions or perhaps any tactical tips or insight, then feel free to drop them in the chat because I will be keeping an eye on it as we go. So first of all, I'm just going to show you some of the tables that there were at this tournament. So there's the first one. They were all very, very nice, by the way. Very yellowy looking one here with kind of a trench running throughout on the lower level there. Lots of variation in the levels on this one. This is another very nice one with a little bit of a mountainside there. Not as much terrain on here. Some of them had much better firing lanes than others, it has to be said, which is nice. You don't want all of them the same at all. Here's one with just a long trench down the middle, and then on the other side of the table, there's kind of an empty channel there on the lower level. So kind of a sewage system, which is nice. This one, a bit of a landing platform situation going on. Some of them have a lot of completely blocking walls like these, and then some of the boards had very few of those at all and had much more like this here with the holes in. So some of them were quite difficult to hide on. Next one, this one looks like it's got some semi-decent blockery on here. And the same applies to this one, although some very open areas as well. All the terrain was very nice though, some of the boards in particular. Okay, so there's just a picture of the first scenario, but before we go on to that, there was a little bit of narrative thrown into this tournament. So the idea is that a particular colony, I'm not going to give you all the intimate details on it, but a colony has gone dark and various factions are headed down there for whatever reasons, and they're going to try to acquire the artifacts that are going to be found down there during mining expeditions and such, and then get them off the planet. So I think that's pretty much the gist of it without spending an hour running through the entire backstory. So I'll tell you about my list when we get to it, when you can actually see it on the table. But game 1, you can see here that it's a meteor shower. So at the start of each round, then a random meteor will strike on one of the cubes on the table, and if there are any models visible there, then it could potentially damage them when it lands. And as far as the objectives go, then you can see that there are 2 2s, and there's a 1 there, and there's also another 1 down there as well that you can't see. So there's a fair amount of points on offer just on the table, regardless of whether you kill things, which is what I like. I like the table to present lots of victory point opportunities, so I don't have to necessarily go chasing after gun lines to get all my points, because I do play the Plague, if you didn't know. So there's my army laid out down there, and I'll go through what's in there. I'm not sure you actually call it an army in Deadzone. Maybe it has a different name, but I'm not sure. So I'll go through what I have. So it's quite simple because I haven't looked into the upgrades that much. Only one model actually has one. That's something I'm going to have to look at for next time, but I haven't played Deadzone that much over the last few months. So I need to dive back into it, I think. The Deadzone community needs to swell in this region, I would say. So we have an aberration over there. We've got 3 dogs, only 2 zombies. And in this tournament, there was a rule which stated that if you lose 4 zombies, then there will be a victory point awarded. So only taking 2, so there'll be no victory points available for killing them. I've got an HMG. There's a guy with a grenade launcher under there. He's going to be staying out of sight pretty much all the time and just hoping to land grenades on people without being seen. There's a Plague Teraton, a Plague Swarm, Stage 2, and the Stage 1A, the big boy himself. So you'll notice that the deployment zone is actually bigger than it's supposed to be. That's because I couldn't physically fit all my models into the 4 or into the 4 squares that are required, I think. How many is it you get? I think you get, let's see, you get 4, but I think I had to extend to 6, it looks like here, because they wouldn't have all fit otherwise. Because I filled that one, I filled that one, filled that one, filled that one. There's 3 in there and 2 in there. So yeah, I would have had 1 model left over if I only had 5 cubes available. So the deployment zones had to be extended for those reasons. And that also means that we're closer to some of the objectives as well. So you'll see who I'm up against in a minute. The one upgrade I took was on the machine gunner. I gave him extra ammo because it's very cheap. So you can see a bit of back view there. You can see there are lots of holes in the terrain, so it's going to be difficult to avoid shooting, apart from around here, where there are some very solid walls. So these guys are relatively safe, and the Teraton being over there means he's just going to be able to teleport through those solid walls, which is nice. Very, very cinematic looking view there. I'm not sure you can actually see any enemy models from this angle, but we'll get to them in a minute. So here they are. I was up against the Forge Fathers in the first round, and they've got an Iron Ancestor, and I'm not 100% sure what everything else is. They've got a couple of the really tough guys here. One of them is the leader, I think. And then there are a few not so tough, just regular troops chilling in there. And he's not got anyone too open because he knows that I've got that grenade launcher. G3XE in the chat says, I'll probably stick with 40k, but the Forge Father minis look tasty. Yeah, they are pretty tasty indeed. So you can see from above here that most of my stuff is kind of towards that corner, his stuff towards this corner. There's a 1 victory point on the ground there. There's a 1 victory point right there, which is very close to me. And then there's a 2 there and another 2, which is on a high level. So that's going to be difficult. If I go up there, then I'm opening myself up to be shot because the Forge Fathers are much better at shooting than I am. I've only got 2 guns in my whole list. And if he goes up there, that means he's strayed quite far forward, which is a pretty dangerous thing to do. Especially when I have a grenade launcher, actually, because if you go up there, I don't think those little fences would prevent you being blown over them onto the ground, which could be potentially damaging if you don't have a jetpack. And I don't think the Forge Fathers do have any jetpacks. So you can see immediately he's just plinking away and does damage to the stage 1A. It's really, all my stuff is going to take some damage in the first turn. I expect that usually the opponent is going to go first in most turns throughout the game. And I was losing a lot of recon tests as well. So in this game, I lost the recon test, and as a result, he was able to move a model first, I think. So that's probably why he was able to then shoot down Mr. Stage 1A. I moved the aberration up, maybe prematurely, actually, because you'll see he does get shot at in a minute. But I kind of miscalculated and didn't think he had his big gun in range. I didn't think any of his regular guns would be much use shooting the aberration, because he's just so big and beastly. But he did have a pretty tasty gun on his Iron Ancestor, which I didn't want to be shot by, but I think I did move into range of that. You can see I've moved dogs up there. I'm always trying to keep everything in a position where he's not going to have a free shot on me. And I've moved my HMG up there. Normally it'd be tempting to just pop out the HMG and just shoot at somebody, but there's really no point at this stage because I'm not close enough to attack anybody, so pinning them down with the machine gun isn't really useful at this stage. And if he pops out, he's just going to get killed. So I'm going to wait until next turn. Hopefully I'll get a move dice. Then I could pop out, take a shot, maybe have a shoot dice as well to have another shot, then use a move dice to hop down into cover again, because otherwise he is going to get killed with all the shooting I'm up against here. So that is the game plan for him. My Teraton is going to be going over to the left because there's a lot of cover here with this building. So I can basically teleport through it and then maybe get to the meat of his army over there. I'm going to be using my dogs on this flanking force over here with the aberration. My main plan is to just sit on the objectives at the end of the turns with my expendable units, because being worth 2, even if he were to then kill a dog or a zombie, it's not going to be worth as much as I just gained by sitting on the objective. I think if you kill every model on my army, you would only get 19 victory points, and you need 20 to win the game. So he is going to have to do something a bit more, hopefully. I mean, if he just guns me down and I've got nothing left, then obviously he's going to win. But I'm not sure that's going to happen here, because I've got a few decent hiding places. You can see that he doesn't actually manage to damage the aberration when I come out to play down there. The viewers are stacking up there, getting quite a few people watching and commenting away. If anyone has any relevant comments, I may refer to them. No time for mindless chit-chat, though. Although my chats surely aren't known for that kind of mindless banter. You can see here that he's moving up, so when I shoot at him at some point, I'm probably going to get open shots with my machine gun, if I want to shoot them. Possibly. There are a few obstructions, bridges and such. So he's not too scared about being in the open from my shooting, because I've only got the one gun where that's actually a factor. The grenade launcher wouldn't get any bonuses for that anyway. And down here, I jump a dog onto the 2 objective there at the end of the turn, and the Teraton teleports onto the 1, so I'm going to get some points for those. And the Plague Swarm, the stage 2, and everything else is just pushing up, so hopefully he's not going to get open shots on me. And I'm not sure what that picture's really showing that we didn't already see. So there's how his forces are looking at the end of the turn. Okay, so the little chart here to show how the victory points are doing. So I've got 3 for just sitting on objectives, and the 1 he got, I think he may have killed a dog, possibly. Seems quite likely. And then look at this. So these are my command dice for round 2, and I get 5 move dice, which is just the ultimate dice that I want, because I'm going to be able to move 5 models closer to him, which is where I want to be. So that's absolutely perfect. I had to re-roll one of them, I think, to get move, but it did actually land on the right one. So very long odds of achieving 5 move dice in one round. Also in this tournament, there was an extra golden dice that you could buy for charity, which you could then add to your command dice for 1 round per game, but I obviously didn't use it in that turn. So with the Plague, one thing I found is that having more models than the enemy, they generally go first in the next round. And if they get activation dice and shoot dice, they can gun down maybe 4 of your models before you even get to activate anything. So he's able to get one of his guys up here and shoot down. And look at that, he just kills my leader, who was already on 1 wound, and then he just does enough to finish him off there. So as tough as these guys are, against the Plague, against the Forge Fathers, it's not that easy to survive because all their weapons have AP. So the armor only protects you so much. He does have tough as well, so it must have been a good roll to get rid of him. But that is going to happen sometimes. And one of my dogs kamikazes into the enemy lines. So I learned a valuable lesson here. Don't just charge a dog on its own into an unhurt Forge Father power suit or whatever it is, because you'll get mercilessly bludgeoned to death. And that's exactly what happened to poor Mr. Doggy here. So my plan of just send one dog in, survive, and then send the other dog in and hopefully do some damage wasn't wise in that situation there, because I was against someone that was just too tough. And he's moved his leader up here, which he seems to think is safe, but he's not aware that the aberration is going to be able to scale 1 onto here, and then he's going to be able to climb that wall as well. Even though there's nothing under it, he is going to be able to scale the wall and get into a fight here, which is not going to end well for the Forge Father, as you'll find out shortly. And there, up he goes, Munch. Kills his leader, 1 round of combat, he's dead. So the damage the aberration has taken is from a shot, I believe, from the Iron Ancestor, who's stuck down there because he can't climb up anything. So he's just going to be walking around at the bottom, and I'm going to be able to hide from him quite easily if I don't want to fight him. His gun is tasty, though, so I don't want to be taking too many shots from it unnecessarily. And let's see. Just a bit of an overview of, I think this is the end of round 2. So the zombie has moved on to the 2 objective there. My Teraton has actually teleported inside the building, I think, and gone through it, because I used a move dice as well, which gives it extra distance. And I was able to get all the way up there and fight that guy on top of the building. But I think he actually damaged the Teraton, oddly enough. So I must have rolled really badly there. So I didn't kill him, but I've got him locked down now, so he's not going to be shooting anyone. And then I'd fancy the Teraton's chances in the next couple of rounds when they fight. So 9 points to 7 at this stage. So he's got a few because he killed my leader. I killed his leader. I'm sitting on the valuable objective there. And there was a bit more killing done from him. He killed a dog as well. So I think that was everything. Okay, in the next round. So the Teraton, you can see that it's killed the model he was fighting there, which is nice. And the Plague Swarm is just chilling out down there, poking its tentacle through the wall, because then I'm not going to be open to any completely in the open shots, so it's more likely to survive. Anyone who's not aware in Deadzone, if you can see the entire model, 100% of it and the base, then you get +2 dice when shooting at it. So if you just poke a tentacle or a toenail or a finger or a tooth or anything, behind a corner, then they're not going to get those +2 dice, which is a bit weird to think about, but it does simplify the game a lot. Mickey Gender says, you have a lot of flamey dudes. Yes, a lot of my dudes do look quite flamey, don't they? So I've sent a zombie towards that objective there because I want him to sit on that at some point. And I'm hoping that he's not going to be shot because he's so busy shooting the aberration, who, as you can see, has taken more damage there. And the Plague Swarm munches greedily on 2 of his guys. So you can see where the Plague Swarm was a minute ago. It was down here. I was able to move in and climb up and kill one of them. And then I had another move dice, so I was able to use that to make an extra move and kill the second one. So that Plague Swarm is just a monster, and it's killed 2 guys. So he's only got, I'm pretty sure he's only got this guy and maybe one other left lingering around somewhere. So that's how the battlefield looks. I managed to get the zombie into this area here. I've only lost a dog and my leader and maybe another dog there, I think, as well. He's lost quite a few, as you can see over there. And the Territon's wounded, but as you're about to find out with the aberrations, the aberration actually runs away because he's taken 4 damage out of 5. So he runs away out of sight just to deny some victory points. My grenade launcher's still alive, and that's the end of the game because I was able to reach 20 victory points with a slight overkill of 22. He was stuck on 7 because he couldn't finish anyone off in that turn. So a nice early win there. At the end of turn 3, the game is over because I reached 20. So as far as tournament points went, I think it was a 7-1 win. I think 7 is the maximum points you can get for a game. 6 is the most you can get just for the game itself because it's 3 for a win available and 3 for achieving more than 16 victory points. And then there's also 1 on offer for killing the enemy leader as well. So nice big win there. And that is actually going to put me on the top table for round 2, which is low G, so low gravity. So if you get blown off a high building, there won't be any damage to you. The deployment is all the way across. And there are some victory points around. Not as many as the previous game, but there are still 2 1s and a single 2. And I'm up against the Rebs in this round, and they've got 3 Terratons, which is not a pleasant sight. I know full well how good Terratons are. The Plague Terraton is mildly different, but it's still very scary. And he's also got some regular shooty guys, and his leader, which I think is that one, has a sniper rifle. So that guy's very, 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 very dangerous. And the way the terrain is set up here, I don't think on either side of the table, I don't think there's anywhere that you can hide from being shot in the first turn. There's no way you can guarantee that you won't be shot. So there's pretty even on both sides of the terrain, but of course I have much less shooting. So you can see how I've set up the aberration down there, but he can still be shot. And also you'll see there's lots of high ground for him to set up his shooty guys on as well. So really I was just trying to hide as much as possible and make sure he didn't have an open shot on anybody. But that's about the best I could do. Because really, if I sit on the higher ground, then I think in most situations it's probably going to take me even longer to get to him from some of these high points. Maybe not, but maybe in hindsight I could have set up slightly up here with just a bit of leg poking behind that bit of terrain there. But I just tried to hide everyone as much as possible. But it's not going to work out very well for me because I lost the recon roll again, and it's not going to be a fun time. You can see I've got lots of guys hiding under here. Around this side, I've tried to hide some of my guys as much as possible, but their guns stick out so much I can't actually get them completely out of sight. They've always got an elbow poking out somewhere. And I've tried to hide my shooty guys completely, but with his recon roll, he was able to move a few models, I think. So he's going to be able to reposition into an even better shooting position for the first round, which isn't nice at all. So you can see the objectives are high up as well, which doesn't really benefit anyone because he probably doesn't want to go that far forward towards my fighting abilities, and I don't want to go that much into the open to get shot. So I'm not sure we're going to be able to take advantage of those. The other one is actually down in the crater, in the trench, but I'm not sure I'm going to go for that because I would then be shot from above a lot, which I'm going to be doing a lot anyway, I think. So you can see his setup. And immediately he guns down my grenade launcher with probably one of these guys. So he's actually dead. He's not just pinned, he's dead in the first round. And so is my stage 2. And then they shoot again, and so is my HMG. So that's all my shooting dead before I've activated a model, because he's got extra shoot and activation dice. So 3 models down, and now I actually get to move. So you can see that I've started advancing my zombies up here, because I don't think he's going to use a lot of resources to take them out. The aberration was somewhat out of sight, but it still could have been shot, but he was focusing more on my ranged attacks first. So all of them dead. But with the plague, you expect to lose a few models in the first turn and then expect to start munching when you get into combat. But I'm not sure whether that's going to be the case here, because of course he has those Teratons as well, which are quite scary. So I move my Teraton up there, somewhat out of sight, but his tail sticking out so much means that he's going to be visible to be shot from a lot of different places. His Teratons, of course, have shooting attacks, which mine doesn't. So he sends 1 Teraton down there into combat with mine for a bit of Teraton on Teraton action. But there's no real killing down there. My aberration is trying to stay pretty much out of sight. And I've got my dogs down there as well. So the first round, he gets 5 victory points and I get 0, mainly for killing things, as expected, but that's pretty standard for the plague, so I'm not too worried at this stage. He jumps one of his guys all the way up onto that victory point there in round 2, and he's got his Teraton lurking there, another one over there. One of my dogs has been wounded. I think that someone's shooting it from over here somewhere. Plague Swarm has taken a wound, so it's just jumping up, keeping slightly in cover with that tiny bit of fence there. And there's a bit of Teraton tennis going on here, because my Teraton punches him in the face, wounds him, and then the aberration comes in and whacks him again and puts further damage on him. Or I may have just punched him and done no damage with the Teraton, and then the aberration came in and did lots of damage to him. That's more likely. But one of the dogs is dead, as you can see. And my Plague Swarm has moved up, trying to stay out of sight. My leader, the stage 1, is moving up. He's guaranteed to be shot. He's so slow, he can't really get anywhere. So against a gun line, he's pretty much useless if they don't have to move. And with the objectives being high up, especially this one on the other side, really far away from him, he's not too worried there, because he's got his Teratons as backup. So look at this. Boom. Leader dead. Kaboom. Sniped. 1 shot. Dead. Wow, wow. So 13-0 after turn 2. So not entirely thrilled with how that turn went, and it's looking a bit bleak at this stage. I don't think I've got a chance of winning. So all I can really do is just try and kill as much as possible and rack up the points and try and get more tournament points. So I do manage to kill that Teraton down there with the aberration, I think. Or maybe the Teraton, but as soon as they pop up, they're going to get shot to bits, because he's got all guys lined up on the back wall, basically, on high ground to shoot down onto them. So that's not going to be fun times if I move up there. I don't roll a lot of move dice either, and with my leader dead, I can't re-roll any move dice. Can't re-roll to try and achieve any move dice, I should say. So my Teraton does actually teleport up there. It can't fight anyone yet, because they're hiding from him, staying out of his range. So he's just lurking up there. And this pitch, you can't really see what's going on, but I've moved my Plague Swarm into the building here in the middle. So his Teraton moves onto the top, which isn't nice at all, because he's going to be able to get 2 victory points for that if he stays there. You can see his Teraton's teleported into the building to fight my Plague Swarm, which is going to be relatively close, I think. What does his leader do this time? Oh, look at that. Boom. Aberration dead. Let's see if it was wounded beforehand. I can't see a wound token on it. No, I don't think it was. I think he just one-shotted it. So his sniper one-shotted my leader, stage 1A, and also the aberration. So yeah, he did get good rolls, but it just shows you they are quite vulnerable against really powerful shooting. I think this guy shoots on a 3+, and he's on higher ground as well. And he is a sniper, so that's very, very dangerous combo. So 1 dead aberration, so that's another stack of victory points heading his way. In a moment of desperation, one of my zombies that he'd neglected to fight, or shoot, should I say, managed to use a move dice to get up on here and survive the round of combat with a Teraton, which means he's not going to get those 2 victory points, which means the game is not going to end this turn. So that gives me another chance to rack up some more points next time. So he did have that guy sitting on the 1, because I've got nothing left over here. So 19-3. So if the zombie hadn't survived that round, he would have just won the game there and then, and I wouldn't have had a chance to get any more points. So my Teraton gets up there to fight his. I've got a buddy in there. I moved into combat, but I just rolled badly and couldn't kill it. But I did punch it down onto the lower level. In there, I think his Teraton kills my Plague Swarm. So my zombie, knowing that when his Teraton climbs back up to fight, he could just choose to fight the zombie, which would be a much easier time than fighting my Plague Teraton. So the zombie runs away and actually manages to kill one of his guys, which is quite funny. So that zombie is definitely doing well for his low points investment. So that gets me some victory points. And then look at that, though. His Teraton, even though it was wounded, climbing back up, wow, does not have much trouble dispatching my Teraton. So he's just sitting on the 2 victory points. So at worst, I could have hoped to just stay there with the zombie and the Teraton, and then he couldn't have killed both of them, hopefully. So then that would have meant I at least contested that and stopped him getting 2. But really, I knew he was going to win this round anyway. The game was going to be over. So I really had to kind of go for as many points as possible rather than just depriving him of points. Because I'm probably not going to be competing with him for a position in the league table because he's beating me by a hefty margin here. And I think his list is really, really good. The guy obviously knows what he was doing as well. And I haven't played Deadzone for quite a while. So I'd be satisfied with just getting a couple of wins in a 5-game tournament. And you can see he's got a lot left. I've only got the zombie left. And yeah, 27-5. So I'm not sure getting those 2 extra points was enough to get me any more tournament points, but it was worth a try. And I almost got the extra 2 victory points for the Teraton as well. So the zombie, man of the match, definitely the MVP. Survived a round of combat with a Teraton and killed somebody. So at this point, it was lunchtime and everyone put their armies out for assessment to see who was going to win the Best Painted award. And I went around and just took pictures of them all. So I'm going to whiz through them a bit. So there's some nice Plague. Always nice to see the Plague. There are some, I don't really know what they are at all. So I'm not even going to speculate. Then we've got my Plague, of course. We've got some Vermin. Quite tasty. We've got Forge Fathers. These ones, they look quite nice, actually. I didn't really appreciate that at the time because they're kind of dark, so you can't see all the detail. Then the Rebs that I was just facing. Got some Marauders. There are a few Marauders at this event. We've got, these were my favourite. These are the ones I voted for. They didn't actually win Best Painted, though. These are very, very nice Plague. When you look up close, it's kind of abstract, the way the colours work. It's kind of cartoon, comic style almost, but it's very, very effective, especially from that medium distance, which is where you're playing from. The army you're against, anyway, you can see it from that medium distance most of the time. So that's where I think the sweet spot is for painting an army for tabletop gaming. So I think this army meets all my criteria for a Best Painted vote. So I voted for that one. Next, I'm not entirely sure what this is. I don't think it's Corporation, but I don't know what it is because I don't recognize any of the models. Then this one is Marauders as well. I mean, look at all these Morbeasts. And apparently these are insane. I think this one actually might have won the Best Painted award. And you can see that they are very nice, actually, the Morbeasts. And then there's the Forge Fathers. These are the ones that I crushed in Game 1. And more Marauders. So look at all these suits. There were a lot of jokes going around on the day about all the Ripper suit mayhem. And these guys are definitely providing a lot of it here. So, Game 3, Deep Mining. So in this one, there are 2 victory points in the middle of the table. And there's also, in these 4 squares here, there is a kind of a crazy miner who's gone nuts and is running around shooting at people, punching them in the face if he can. So he moves randomly and then attacks the closest model if he can. So my opponent won the recon roll again. So he picked the side that has a door to access this guy. On my side of the table, there is actually no way to reach him without climbing up and over. So there's 5 victory points on offer if you can kill this guy, but he is very, very tough. So my opponent is obviously hoping to kill him, which is probably why he's chosen that side of the table, because he's got the nice juicy door there. So if he wants to get in there and kill him, he's got a slightly easier time, I think. And this guy's likely to wander out in that direction as well, with there being a door there and not just walls. So here's my setup. This is the table with the nice cliff face there, which is interesting because they're all half cube size, a lot of these walkways, so you can't actually walk anyone who's above size 2 on there. So my Teraton, Aberration, and Stage 1 Leader, who's down there, none of them will be able to reach this area here, or stand on this bridge, for example, and there's a lot of that on this map. So we'll see I've got my HMG up there behind a little pile of rocks for some cover. Got my dogs up there. Grenade launcher down there. This side actually doesn't have anywhere where you can be completely safe from shooting, so maybe that's why he chose the other side, because my opponent also has Plague, and there's a spot in that corner where you can hide and not be seen by anything. So that's where he's put his Plague mortar, so maybe that's why he wanted that side. He's also got a couple of HMGs. His list is fairly similar to mine, because he's got a Teraton, he's got a Plague Swarm, he's got an HMG, he's got another HMG, he's got a mortar, he has a grenade launcher, so quite a few similarities. He has the Stage 1A as well, he just doesn't have an Aberration. He has a couple of zombies as well, maybe one actually, and he has a couple of regular guys, I think, as well. So a few differences, but we do have quite a few similar models. And you can see a nice cinematic view here. There were LEDs on this table, which is very nice. Moving on. Oh, you can see my opponent's hand there if you want to analyse how well groomed the fingernails are. I'll leave that up to the audience though. So as a Plague player, surely you shouldn't have immaculate fingernails if you want to get into the spirit of the game. So the mortar, what does it do? It immediately targets this cube here and wounds a dog and just kills another one instantly. So wow. I was actually going to take a Plague mortar in my list, but there was like an entire page of modified rules for the mortar in this tournament. So I thought instead of actually reading the tournament pack, I'll just not take a mortar because that's easier. So one dog down already, one wounded. Oh dear, not a good start. So I moved my Aberration and my Stage 1 up in this kind of direction to behind some level of cover, trying to hide them from mortar fire. And really, I should just push my Stage 1 forward as fast as he can go, because he hasn't got much shooting, really. Not much in terms of short range, anyway. I've got my Teraton lurking there. He would really like to teleport up there and eat some of his guys and then go after the mortar, but I can't do that while his Stage 1 is around, because the Teraton would probably get minced. Over here, you might think it's not in focus, but he had his HMG over there, and my HMG just killed him in one go. So that's why that bit's in focus, because that's where the lack of dead body is. And next, so he moves his Teraton up there. Now he's not going to be able to go after my HMG here because that area is too small for a Teraton to stand on. So he's moved up there, but I'm going to be able to just shoot him willy-nilly almost. And then I want to pin him and then attack him with another model while he's down, because I think I've got a decent chance of hurting him then. So you can see I moved my Plague Swarm up there, ready to strike, which in theory is a good idea, but you'll see why it might not be in a minute, because the HMG automatically suppresses any model in the cube it shoots at, regardless of whether it hits or causes any damage or anything. So I want to suppress him, then move into combat with the Plague Swarm. But you'll see in a minute why that's not possible. So I've got the dog and the Stage 2 on this little ledge as well. And I think the Teraton can actually go down there, but whether he would do against both of them is questionable. So his grenade launcher, look what it does. It knocks my Plague Swarm backwards, which means I'm now out of range to attack the Teraton. So that screws up my plan big time there. So turn 1, he's got 4 victory points, I've got 1. Then you can actually see the crazy miner pops out the doorway here and actually guns down one of his dogs. So I don't get a victory point for it, which is unfortunate, but he has lost a model without me doing anything, which is nice. But he's completely in the open now, so if he wants to attack him and maybe kill the miner, then there's 5 victory points on offer, potentially. So I do suppress the Teraton by moving up so I can have a fully open shot on him, because I couldn't get one from back there because of the crates, and he can't attack me back here because this area is too small for a Teraton. And then I also, with the HMG, take a pot shot at his grenade launcher and roll really well and just kill it outright. So that's nice. But then look at this. With an HMG, he shoots the crazy miner. He suppresses it, and then he moves in with a Plague Swarm and with an extra attack dice so he can attack it twice, and he actually kills the miner. who has really tough stats as well, but he managed to do it, maybe against the odds, but the Plague Swarm is a bit of a combat beast. So he killed that thing, so just 5 victory points to him. So it's going to be an uphill struggle for me now, because even if I kill all his stuff, if I kill most of his stuff, it's going to be difficult. I would probably have to kill almost everything to win now. So that's going to be a challenge. So he's got a dog in this area here for the 1 victory point attempt. So I send my dog in there to fight it. They don't do anything. He sends a zombie in there to fight as well. So it's just kind of a pillow fight going on down there because they're not really doing anything to each other. You can see that I sent my stage 2 from down here up into the Teraton who was down, thinking, well, I'm going to get an extra dice because he's down, and the stage 2s are pretty good in combat. But look at that, he just gets killed. The Teraton wins, and oh dear. So that didn't pay off. It was a gamble, and it didn't work. Here, I moved my stage 1 leader up into this corridor with the 1 victory point, as if to say, bring it, my brethren, and the stage 1 obliges and comes into combat. The reason I did that is because I wanted my Teraton to move, as I mentioned earlier, and while that guy was in range to threaten him, I couldn't really do anything with the Teraton. So by sitting on this 1 objective here, with my stage 1A leader, he is then inspired to move his in, and they're not that great at killing each other because they have the tough rule, so it's not that easy. So of course that means the Teraton is then able to teleport up there and start munching on his units. So after turn 2, without the Crazy Miner it would have been 10-4, but I would have been relatively confident because I feel like I have a slight combat edge over him because he's got a more shooty heavy army than I do. But with the Miner as well, putting it to 15-4, he's really got it close to ending the game now, which isn't nice. So we both send models in to help in this fight, just to try and give the bonus, but then all we do is actually just end up eating each other's models there, instead of fighting each other, because we were finding it so difficult to wound each other's leaders with the leaders. So anyone that came in basically got eaten. Up here, the Teraton finishes nibbling on those guys. And my Plague Swarm at the moment can't be reached by his Teraton, so he's just chilling there, because my Plague Swarm, with 2 wounds on it, from a lot of gunfire, is a bit scared to actually face that Teraton. And you can see, I think he's killed my dog down there as well, which isn't nice. And his swarm that killed the Crazy Miner is chilling up there as well. So my Aberration is going in there. He's easily going to kill them, but there's not a lot of victory points on offer, so I'm sure he doesn't care about that. He's just delaying my Aberration and throwing chaff at him, basically. And after that turn, I managed to kill a couple of models. He managed to kill a couple of cheap models. So 17-6. I suspect he's going to win at this stage, so I'm just, again, trying to rack up points. And here you can see his dog is dead. His Teraton has run away a little bit there. Over here, this fight's raging on. And my Teraton teleports down there and just wipes the floor with his mortar, so I've got a few points for that. But just wiping out his cheap units isn't going to be enough for me to win, unfortunately. And this fight's still going on. Over here, he loses his zombie to my Aberration, of course, but no victory points for that nonsense. So at the end of turn 4, he doesn't rack any up at all, and I racked up 4 for killing various miscellaneous units. So he's still in pole position to win, but I'm closing the gap as time goes on. So his Teraton attacks my Plague Swarm, but doesn't manage to kill it, even though it's at death's door. And over here, this pillow fight continues. So that's going to be the end of that game. So I didn't take any of the pictures, but he kind of kamikazed his Plague Swarm into my Aberration, and that got killed. And I think his Teraton probably survived, just running away. So in the end, I've actually got a sheet here, because I didn't take a picture of the final score. So the final score was 17-13 to him. So he didn't rack up any points at all in the last couple of turns, and I kept gaining a few each turn. So because he didn't reach 20, I think it's technically a draw. So it's a draw that's in his favour, though, so he's going to get more points than me. And neither of us killed our leaders, so it wouldn't have been that one-sided in the scoring, but he would have got slightly more than me. So technically a draw, but I wouldn't be too pleased claiming that as a draw when someone's got more points than me. Also, you can tell with it being 17-3, the entire difference in the score that Crazy Miner getting killed made. If I'd killed him, I would have won, by even more than that. And if he hadn't died at all, then it would have just been 12-13, so it would have been even closer. Moving on, game 4. So technically 2 kind of losses. 1 definite loss, 1 definite win, 1 losing draw, let's call that one. So game 4, this is artifact retrieval. So there are a series of artifacts along the center of the table here, and we deploy in the corners. But of course, with my amount of models, I have to take an extra cube, so we automatically get closer, slightly closer to the objectives by virtue of that. So each of these is a random table, which I'll show you now. So it could just blow up, a random item, a small artifact, which is worth 1 victory point if one of your models holds it at the end of the game and not before, or a large artifact, which is worth 2 at the end of the game if you hold it then with one of your models. So you'd carry that around with you, and then if your model dies, they would drop it, of course. So beasts can't hold it as well, and I've got quite a lot of beasts in my list. So I'm against the Veermin here, which I've only played against once before. And they've got, I think that's called a Tangle, and it has kind of psychic powers to reinvigorate his troops. I'm pleased with the list he's got, though, because he doesn't have shooting. His longest range shooting is 3 cubes. So I'm going to be able to outgun him with my grenade launcher and my HMG. And you'll see that my side of the table has high ground on it as well. So I'm going to use that to good effect with the heavy machine gun. He's got quite a few small dudes. He's got the really big scary, I think is that a Ripper? And he's got a couple of nightmares with a variety of different weapons, but nothing super long range, so I'm not worried really, because I think my army obviously excels in combat, and I can have the shooting supremacy as well. So I've got my HMG down here because there's a big tower up here that he's going to climb up. 2 zombies and a dog going this way, and I'm sending a lot of my big hitters, the Aberration and the Stage 1 Leader and the Plague Swarm are going to go in this direction, because you can see that's where he put his big Ripper. So I want to get my good stuff in there, fighting that, and then kind of chaff up this end of the table. And of course, my Teraton can teleport through this very solid building here. So that's kind of versatile wherever it's needed. Grenade launcher hiding out of sight down there, ready to shoot when anything's in range. Let's see. Wayne Caitlin says, Andy, I'm watching with my lad. He's 4. Please just say hello. His name is Ben. Hello, Ben. And as you know, on this channel, we don't use too much foul language, so possibly suitable for children at times. There is lots of discussion on danglage, though, so I'm not sure that's entirely PG. And of course, anytime there's a guest on the channel, well, their mouths can't be trusted, obviously. Okay, look at this. The lovely view from this tower that I'm able to get the HMG up to. And I gunned down some models over there. I think something dies immediately, and obviously everything else in the cube is suppressed as well, because the HMG, I gave him the extra ammo, and he found some extra ammo in a crate up on that tower as well. So that's nice. So I used some extra ammo, and I've still got more, so it's just driving home the shooting supremacy that I have because of the terrain and the fact that I've actually got guns. So the grenade launcher as well is able to just scatter some of his troops. I don't know if it actually does any damage. It might have wounded someone that walked in under this building here, but he's going to be running for cover in a minute after all this shooting. So the zombie, he manages to pick up the artifact there, because I roll on the random table, and it appears to be a large artifact, which is nice. The first 2 that he investigated turned out to be just random items, which didn't help him that much, but I've got that 2 victory points if I hold it at the end of the game, so the zombie is just going to run away with that now and hope to escape, and never attack anything and just chill. Because zombies aren't technically counted as beasts, whereas dogs are. So he's moved his Ripper up there. He's picking up, you can see an artifact he picked up turned out to be some ammo, which is all very well, but he would have liked to get some victory points from it. And look, he's just hiding under there, hiding from grenades, hiding from the HMG. And my big guy actually finds in a crate some intel, which is just a nice free victory point, which is a nice bonus. So after round 1, I'm winning 2-0. I killed a model and I found the intel. So there we go. He hasn't picked up any yet. And you can see I'm slowly expanding out. I'm not sure, the Teraton's gone over here now. So I'm sensing he's going to be needed on this side. There's a bit of backup. And over here, I'm sending the other big stuff. Plague Swarm chilling down there as well. And there's a lot of cover for this area here. And the same can be said for him in this corner. So this is a kind of a dream board for most of us if we're against shooting, for both of us really, because we only have mostly short-range weaponry. And look at that. That is almost an ideal roll for the Plague. An extra activation, 3 extra moves, and an extra dice. So the extra moves is very, very tasty there. The Aberration gets set on fire by something, which isn't nice, but he kind of looks like he's on fire already, doesn't he? Over here, okay, this is a series of events that happened very, very fast, so I didn't get a chance to depict it with pictures here. But one of his guys that was down here sprinted up onto this building and killed the zombie carrying the 2 objective. So he was able to take it from him. He then used a move dice to climb up there and fight my HMG, but couldn't kill him, luckily for me. So then the Plague Swarm scaled the building and killed that model. And then the HMG, when he activated, he picked up the 2 victory point marker, the artifact. So that series of events ended up in my favor nicely because of the Plague Swarm that was just chilling down there and its ability to climb up the walls. And the HMG, I'm not sure whether it does any damage in this turn, but you can see there's a bit of fighting going on here, and a wound's been dished out from my stage 2. Then, up here, okay, look at Ripper versus Aberration. That's going to be a fight for the ages. It's going to be a fun one. Down here, the dogs have been set on fire, which isn't nice. There's a guy in there with a flamethrower of some description. Then the zombie moves up there and finds a small artifact, which is worth 1 victory point if he holds it at the end of the game. So at the end of that round, I've got 5, he's got 2. So still in the lead, extended the lead slightly. HMG takes aim again, and I think he actually kills someone else. Okay, that's the only picture I took in that turn because it was so fast-paced. So I picked up 3, he picked up 1. So I think I actually killed someone. I think I killed his leader under there, who was worth 3 victory points, and that's what I was taking the picture of. So he died, and then presumably he killed a dog, possibly, or something. So his leader is dead. Not much else of note obviously happened in that turn, or maybe it was just so fast-paced that I didn't get a chance to take a picture there. So end of turn 4, that's how it's looking. So I'm fairly confident here. I'm probably not going to get enough to have 20 points, so it's going to be kind of a winning draw in the end. So here, you can see that the Aberration has been wounded there. And he's got that guy with the drills coming out there to fight the dogs, but my stage 1 is very close by, who's also on fire, who's moved over there. My Plague Swarm is suppressed for some reason up there. And there's a fight going on down there between the dog and one of his nightmares. But my Teraton is actually underneath this here. So he could teleport through there and fight anyone he wants shortly. He's just hiding right down there. And you can see that my grenade launcher has just climbed up into this cube, and he's hiding kind of behind this piece of terrain. So he's kind of skirting the line between the 2 cubes there, so he can hide from any enemy fire. The Ripper actually kills the Aberration, which I didn't think was going to happen. I thought I was going to eat that thing for breakfast after it killed my stage 2, but no, it's a tough beastie. But as you can see at the end, I was able to, let's just see, I was able to kill this guy, this nightmare I think it is, with the stage 1 going in there into fight. The Teraton popped out there and killed something over here. And then I ended with that artifact there, which is worth 2. So at the end of the game, I managed to, oh, by the way, this isn't actually the end of the game at all, because you can see I made a mistake here on my chart. So that's not the end of the game, because I accidentally started writing it weirdly here. You can see that the 1 is above the team names. So I do correct this at some point, but I don't think I actually took any more pictures of the game. So I'll have to go refer to my sheet here. So on the sheet, I can confirm that in the final turn, he racked up another 2 victory points and got up to 10. And I kind of scribbled out the turn numbers and put in the correct ones after I realized that there was a mistake. And then I got up to 16 victory points. So it was 16-10. So 6 points between. So it's a decent margin of victory. And I did kill his leader as well. So I ended up with 6 tournament points for that, which is only 1 down on the maximum you can get. So that's a good performance there. But in the last turn, it was quite funny because his Ripper actually it kind of went nuts because it has the what's it called, the rampage rule, and it failed its test, so I was able to just move it instead of attacking any of my dudes. So that was handy. That happened in the last turn, so there's no picture evidence of that. And I already told you the other things that happened. The Teraton under there eventually starts mopping people up over there, which is why I got some extra points. And the Plague Swarm, I think, was able to join in as well in the final turn. So just ignore this incorrect numbering here. Okay, game 5. So at this stage, I think I'm doing all right. I've got a win, a loss, and then technically 2 draws, one of them being a losing draw, one being a winning draw. So pretty even so far, considering I haven't played much Deadzone in the last 8 or 9 months. I think that's pretty solid performance for a tournament. So I've got 1 game left now, and we were rushing by this stage to fit in the 5th game. So this is Extraction, and there are 2 objectives in the middle of the table, which for most of the game are going to be worth 1 if you hold them, and then at the end of the game they're worth more in the last couple of turns because it's like a plane that you're using to extract your forces from the battlefield. So there are also zombies that come in from the corner randomly. So I'm playing on the kind of sewer board here. So I've had to set up some of my guys down there in the corner to avoid shooting because I'm against Forge Fathers, and most of my people have been positioned out of sight, like my grenade launcher, because there's a lot of really nice blocking terrain here, especially since my opponent is set up in the opposite corner. So you can see his guys there. He's got I think that's his leader with a rocket launcher there, so he's really dangerous. Oh no, I think his leader's under here. He's just a heavy weapons dude with a rocket launcher. His leader is just hiding down here somewhere. I'm not sure which one it is exactly. They're very nicely painted, these. And he's got extra ammo on a few of his guys. So there's the rocket launcher that moves up there, because I actually won the recon test in this game for the first time in the tournament, but all I could do was look in crates. But I did find out that one of them contained intel, so I knew I could get a free victory point by opening that one. So you will see. Wayne Caitlin says, Andy, or Wayne Catlin, should I say, Andy, do you get recognized at these tournaments? Generally, I do get recognized at tournaments. In the smaller communities like Deadzone and Kings of War, people tend to know each other anyway, because there aren't that many players. Especially Deadzone, I generally knew roughly who everyone was from Facebook posts and such. So there were only a few people who I wasn't familiar with at all. So generally everyone, I imagine everyone would know who I am at a Deadzone tournament. Or even though I don't cover it that much on my channel. But Kings of War, typically, almost everyone I would say would know who I am from there. And were I to turn up to a tournament for something like Age of Sigmar, it would be kind of mixed, because obviously my channel is mostly known for Age of Sigmar content, but then it's also such a large community that you're more likely to run into people that just don't interact with, let's say, the Facebook side of the community or the YouTube side of the community. So it's a bit of a mixed bag in the big communities. The small ones, though, generally, most people will know who I am. Mickey says, yes, of course, I'm having to beat off all the ladies with a stick to keep them away from me. And no, they're not just asking to be introduced to Remington. Okay, so the aberration makes its way down there into the crevasse in the middle, but I can't actually hide it from view at all because his spikes are so spiky that they stick out so much that even from way back on the table, he can still see the tip of the spike, which means he's allowed to shoot him. So he's starting to take damage here. And then I'm kind of piling up on my dudes at the back here, just hiding, so keeping them out of sight. But the grenade launcher does shoot and actually wounds that guy and knocks him down, which is nice. But the Forge Fathers, their special splat ability, which is way better than my splat ability, by the way, allows them to do some healing. So that's going to come into play at some point. The dogs move up, but they can't open the crate. That's the one that has intel in it, since I spied on it earlier with the win of the recon roll. So I'm going to send someone else up there to open that at some point. You can see that he's moving onto higher ground with a lot of his guys here. And the dude there is staying in that cube, so he's just out of grenade launcher range. And I'm moving up. Now, my Teraton lying down there is actually inside this bit of the building here. The Plague Swarm's moved up there. So the two objectives, there's one there and one there, which aren't worth that much yet, but they will be at some point. And it's difficult for me to get close here, because if you see, there's kind of half cubes on either side of the trench. So to move my big guys across there, I can't actually stand on the upper level here with any of the big stuff, including the aberration. So I have to kind of chill down in the trench. Mickey says your channel is known for burning Space Marines now. Yes, it is, by some people, but most of those people probably didn't subscribe and just thumbs down the video. Okay, so this guy's going to go and open the crate at some point. It's difficult for me to get across there, is what I'm saying. And he's going to get open shots down into the trench on me while I'm waiting in there to strike. So it's not an ideal situation. But of course, I do have the advantage of just having all this cover at the start, so I don't immediately get gunned down into a bazillion pieces. You can see he finds a grenade in that crate there. And he's got another guy down. No victory points at all in turn 1. I think that guy might have been suppressed with the HMG, because you can see I've put the HMG up here. Now, this is a little bit strange situation, because the HMG is clearly facing this way, but he's shooting that way. But I've got him over here poking his gun out through this area here, through this bit of wall, so that if any of his guys climb up to here, they won't have an open shot on me. So it's a little bit weird how that works. So if you kind of manufacture a really long tentacle onto the back of your model and then like run it round a corner, no one will ever get an open shot on you at all. But of course, they're more likely to see you to shoot you in the first place, so it's harder to hide completely. So the next turn, the aberration dies because he actually shot every single one of his models at the aberration. Even though it was trying to hide down in the trench, he could still see it with everybody, which shows you how ineffective a hiding place it actually was. So it dies at the start of turn 2, but he did have to take a couple of guys to finish it off, and the dog's going to get shot as well, probably. So you can see that I'm going to be poised to send the Teraton across there at some point, but he doesn't have anyone close enough to actually hit yet. So he's just chilling, shooting me, basically, because that's the easiest way for him to rack up points, because I have to come towards him, because there aren't enough victory points on offer on the map until the last couple of turns. So this is the shot of my HMG being dead, I think. I believe that's what's happened here. That's why there's a picture of it. So my grenade launcher moves out of cover, shoots and kills that guy, and then darts back into cover with a move dice. So he moved, used a shoot dice to shoot, and then used a move dice to move again. So it cost me a lot of command dice, but it was worth it because I got to kill someone. So you can see here, okay, the Teraton who was inside this building teleported out, but he couldn't actually fight these guys here because they were on a piece of land that he can't stand on. So he's actually in the same cube as them, technically, but he's on a lower level because he can't stand there. So it's a really weird situation that he's in. So the Teraton is just like angling his hand round a corner, praying that he won't be open shotted, and then next turn he'll just be able to teleport in there and kill somebody. So really that's all I can do is just, because my models are so big they can't fit on this, they're all having to just wait a turn in the trench before they can actually go any further, which is really annoying. So he's up 5-4 on victory points here, because he's killed the aberration and something else, and I got 4. I think I killed one model that was worth 3, and I picked up the intel that I mentioned earlier. So the pictures are going to get blurry now because we're really rushing, because we were told we've got about 10 minutes left and we've only played 2 turns, and the whole place was going to start shutting down. So we had to hurry up. So I just swarm everything up towards his missile launcher dude, and I don't think there's another picture of that because we were in such a rush, and that's why this one's blurry. But what happens is I had 2 dogs in there, one of them died, and then in the next turn I moved this big stage 1 into him to fight, but roll absolutely terribly, fighting on a 3+ with 5 dice I think I had, and I only hit with one of them, which is absolutely terrible. So I couldn't even get any points for killing him, but I did get points for holding. In the next turn, I will have got points for holding this and the other objective, which together at the end of turn 4 are worth 3 victory points. So I will get points for holding both of them, because you can see this plague swarm is going to dance onto it, and then the grenade launcher on the other side is going to move onto it as well. a couple of zombies kamikaze into this guy, and they don't actually get any points for that, obviously, because they're only zombies. And there you can see at the end, we had to end because we ran out of time after turn 4. So I got 8 victory points and he ended up with 12. He gained 1 in that turn for killing something like a dog, probably. I got 3 more for killing another model. Oh, no, actually not. I got the 3 more for holding the objectives, which are there and on the other side. I didn't kill anyone else. So if we'd had turn 5, let's see what would have happened. Well, we both would have been a bit more careful if we had more time, so it's hard to say. But I definitely would have killed that guy, and I assume he's worth 3. I wouldn't have kamikazed so many of my models, so I wouldn't have got these victory points. I probably would have waited until turn 5 to do that. So I wouldn't have kamikazed my grenade launcher yet. So I might have damaged someone with him. I might have finished off this guy, perhaps. So it's hard to say exactly what would have happened if we'd had another turn, because he would have been more careful with his positioning as well, because we wouldn't have been in such a rush. But it's safe to say it was close, and it would have still been close had we gone into another turn as well. So it's another draw, but obviously it's on the slight losing side of the draw again. So overall, of the 5 games, that's 1 big win, 1 big loss, and technically 3 draws, 2 of them being losing draws, 1 of them being a winning draw. The biggest of those being the winning draw. The 2 losing draws were slightly closer. So overall, I would say that's a very even and very solid day. Out of 12 players, I actually ended up finishing in 8th, which I think is acceptable, maybe slightly lower than I thought I was going to be, looking at my results, considering I got 1 game where I got maximum points. I got 1 game where I got 1 below maximum points. And I think it was just that big loss I suffered didn't help. And then the other 2 games were kind of marginal draw/losses. So yeah, maybe fair. I was hoping maybe like 6th or 7th position, but I think 8th is okay. So still nowhere near the bottom of the table, so that's nice. I wasn't expecting to challenge to actually win the whole thing because I just haven't played enough Deadzone recently. And as far as analysing my list for what I could change, well, let's have a look. The stage 1A, I don't like him. I think he's too many points. He never gets to fight, really, because the enemies stay away from him, and he's too slow. Even with a move dice, he's only moving 2 cubes, and you're having to use a move dice on him every single time, which is kind of a resource drain. His splat is absolutely terrible. His special command ability is so awful, because it's a random table of a mutation that you can put on one of your models. So the majority of the time, it's going to be something you can't even use. So it's just not very good at all. And I would much rather have either a really cheap leader who just hides, or if I could take Dr. Simmons, I would definitely use her, because her command ability, her splat ability is amazing, because you can pick which upgrade you put on a model. So yeah, she would pretty much be hiding as well. So I'll definitely look into using a different leader next time, which would free up some points, which would allow me to take maybe a mortar, another HMG, another Teraton or something like that. Maybe another zombie. The dogs really did nothing in this tournament of any great effect because most of the things I wanted to fight were too powerful, and I didn't have the firepower to suppress or wound enough of the enemy's models so that when the dogs get there, they have a fighting chance of not immediately dying. Because I only had the 2 guns, and in many of the games you saw they were killed, especially game 2, they were killed very early on. So the dogs, I think they were just victims of my list not having enough shooting, because the dogs on their own don't fight that very well. You just really need to get people suppressed and wounded with shooting by the time they get there so they can actually have a fighting chance, or send them in as backup later. But they're so fast that sending them in as backup it seems like a waste of their talents at times. It'd be just as easy to use zombies if that's how you're going to do it. So yeah, I think ditching the stage 1 is where I'm going to get some points. I'm going to look at upgrades as well, because I haven't actually looked at them at all. I only picked the extra ammo for the HMG because it pops up on the army building page as an option for 2 points. So I need to look through the rulebook and look at some of those others, because I haven't really looked into them at all yet, because I still class myself as a Deadzone kind of beginner. I think I'm familiar enough with the rules now where I can start looking at all the crazy stuff like upgrades and hopefully start improving my tournament performances and overall performances in general. I think my Overall, though, my list was not terrible by any means. There were just certain armies and certain boards that we played on that we were coming up against that weren't ideal for me at all. Gun lines, when I've got nowhere to hide, was not ideal, which is the game I had that big loss in game 2. And there were a couple of the other boards where there weren't that many decent hiding places either. The games I did best in, I had a decent amount of places to hide in game 1. And also the scenario had a lot of victory points that could be picked up in the middle of the table, which meant that my opponent was more encouraged to come forward. And even if I don't get to fight, I can still pick up points just sitting on the objectives. So that benefited me a little bit. And then in game 4, when I had the winning draw, the big winning draw, then my opponent didn't have any long-range weaponry, so I was able to kind of dictate the shooting and suppress who I wanted at will, basically, in that game. So overall, a bit of list tweaking, make it a bit more versatile, and I think I'll be able to do all right, put in some more creditable performances going forward. It was a lot of fun, though. All the games were they were definitely all fun, even if not all of them were that close. And all the opponents were very sportsmanlike. It was a very friendly atmosphere in the tournament. I didn't hear any raised voices throughout the day. There didn't seem to be any major arguments or difficulties. Any rules, inquiries, or issues that came up were easily dealt with. I think Deadzone is a game that is built to avoid that kind of rules weirdness. If you can see something, you can shoot it. You don't have to see like 25% of the model, so you argue about whether that gun counts as 25% or whether you have to see only bits of the model that are like part of the torso, but what happens if you can see the shoulder or it's got a tentacle hanging off it? So weapons don't count, but do tentacles. It just ignores all that weirdness and just says if you can see any part of the model, you can shoot it. So I think it eases a lot of the potential tension and takes away a huge amount of potential arguments at tournaments. So I think it's a game that's very suited for tournaments because of that. So I hope the tournament scene continues to flourish, because this was 12 people, which is pretty solid. That's the most people I've seen at a Deadzone tournament. The only other one I went to, I think, had less than that. It's still not as many as some of the Kings of War events, but then again, some of them don't have that many either. So it's nice to get a bit of variety in the tournament gaming, and it's got me with the Deadzone bug a little bit again. So I'm probably going to start working on my Deadzone board again at some point. That I purchased the wood for, just haven't done anything with it yet. But obviously that's going to have to come after I've painted some of my Caradron overlords that I've just spent a huge amount of money on. And of course I've already got the Deadzone table with all the terrain to play on. So that's kind of more of a luxury thing when I get round to it. And it's not going to take that a huge amount of time, I think. Still want to build that kind of round the edge sewer works, but that you can still walk on top of. So that's what I'm going for. I think that's going to be a lot of fun when that's done. Just whiz back through some of the images here, and I'm going to wrap this one up in a minute. As you can tell, not quite as in-depth analysis as the Kings of War videos, because it's harder to analyze without the kind of step-by-step pictures that you get with Kings of War, because you have an entire turn of your opponent to just take pictures if you feel like it. Whereas, obviously, in Deadzone, by the time you've taken a picture, it's already over to you again. So there aren't many more opportunities. Oscar Johansson says, please do more Deadzone. There will be plenty of more Deadzone. I've been talking to some of the local people, and we're hoping to get a nice game session in, maybe 4 people at my house at the same time with 2 tables set up, playing against a variety of different armies, taking some pictures, doing some more videos, maybe like a mini tournament between 4 of us. That'd be fun because I've got plenty of space for that. So we'll hope to do that soon and get a video up on that as well. And I'll probably do one of my Friday shows on Deadzone at some point soon as well, because I haven't done one of them for a while, analysing my performance and analysing maybe some of the lists in this tournament and why they work well, and why some of the lists finished as high as they did. The one that won is an army I'm totally not familiar with at all, so I can't really comment on it much. And what else finished quite high up? I suppose I'll just have a quick look at, let's see if I can find something on Facebook quickly before I end the show. I'll just whip my phone out here. And let's see. I'm sure this is very exciting, waiting for me to find this. Where is the group? Deadzone Fanatics. There we go. Let's crack that open. And it's furiously scrolling away. Let's see if I can find it, because there was a leaderboard final result thingy on here somewhere. I'll be able to tell you which factions did well and which ones didn't. I obviously finished 8th. I know for a fact that 2 Forgefather armies finished below me. Okay, I found it. Here we go. So the Veermen that I defeated kind of in the winning draw finished bottom. Forgefathers that I defeated in game 1 finished 11th. Then Marauders with all the Moor Beasts, which was a very nice looking army. I think that was the one that won Best Painted. He finished 10th. The other Forgefathers that I played, where it was kind of just about losing draw, but we didn't actually get to finish the game, he finished 9th, just below me, in 8th with my Plague. So quite a few Forgefathers at the bottom there. Marauders finished above me. Then there were 2 lots of Plague, including one of the ones I played, or the one that I played in 5th and 6th, 2 lots of Plague. The Rebs that I lost to with the 3 Teratons finished in 4th. Marauders with the 4 Ripper Suits finished in 3rd. In the 2nd, apparently it was GCPS, but I have no idea what that actually is. And then in 1st place, it was Asterians, the only Asterians in the tournament, and they finished 1st. And I really have no idea how they even work, because I've never played against them. I've never really looked at their model range because I thought it looked a bit spindly and just didn't like it. So I haven't really paid too much attention to them. But obviously, if someone's winning tournaments with them, there must be something going on there. So the best backstory went to the army with the 3 Teratons, the one that I lost to. So obviously, I was trying to win best backstory, but considering the amount of time and effort I put into mine compared to some of the others, then it's kind of lucky I didn't win, really. Because even though mine was funny, it was kind of light-hearted, and it only really took me about 10 or 15 minutes, and I'm sure other people spent longer on theirs, so I'm glad I didn't win, really, in the end there. The best painted, a few people were complimenting my army, actually, so I thought I might be in with a chance there, even though technically there's not that much that's gone into my army. This was my favourite one here, this Plague, which are very nice. So I thought maybe I had an outside chance. It depends how they vote and how they score best painting, because sometimes they just get everyone's votes and just put them in a hat and then pull one of them out. So even if you only get 1 nomination, you still have a chance of winning. But I don't think that's how they did it here. I think it was definitely on a number of votes. So I wouldn't be surprised if I got a vote or 2, though, because a few people were very complimentary of them. And apart from that, don't really have anything else to say on it. Apparently they raised £73 for charity with the donations for the golden dice for the re-rolls. So that's good, of course. I'm not sure which charity it went to. It doesn't say on here. But any charity is usually good, unless it's charity to like support the, I don't know, what would be a bad charity? Anyone got a bad charity suggestion in the comment? I was trying to think of something, but I can't think of anything that would be suitable for broadcast, really. How about the support of giving Remington Steel access to more groupies? That's a charity that's definitely not a worthy cause. I think that's a fair one. Okay. Anyone who doesn't follow the Andy and Rem show and just doesn't know who Remington Steel is, they may be thinking of Remington Steel, the TV show, which would be interesting if people were thinking that. But don't worry, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm sure most people on this channel know who Remington is, though, since he's in like a quarter or a third of my videos. Okay, so time to wrap this one up then, folks. Let's just look at this dead stage 1A, because that's how he's going to be. He's going to be straight out my list. He might as well be dead. He's fun in the right circumstances, but he's just too slow. And his splat is a terrible ability. So, ending the broadcast now. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. Don't forget to check out all the links in the description, the various social media pages and such. And stay tuned. And there'll be more Deadzone goodness coming up soon. As far as other game systems, there's the Andy and Rem show tomorrow. I think it's this week. There is an Andy and Rem show, pretty sure. And then there's probably there's going to be a Kings of War battle report as well, actually, because I played a game against Halfling Pete and his Halflings the other day. So that's going to be coming up, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And other than that, you'll just have to wait and see. So, ta-ta for now, ladies and gentlemen, and if you want to hear the backstory for this Deadzone army, then look at the previous video, which is entitled My Best Work, and it's got me doing a kind of an audio book of my backstory. So, good night, everybody, and I'll catch you next time. Ta-ta for now.